Stocky, I think NNE is a falling knife, but I'm buying it anyways because somehow you always seem to time the bottom. I don't think that's going to happen here. Okay, no, you know what? Let me whiteboard this. Okay, never mind. Fuck it, because I think I need to do this. All right, I'm gonna do a whiteboard, an unexpected whiteboard. Okay, there's a big. Okay, all right. Hold on. Let's not get too crazy here. You guys are gonna get some shit started that I'm not ready for. Okay. Y'all want to know where the fake news came from, right? Clickbait's the original clickbait. All right, let me tell you about the Great Moon Hoax. And before you say, that's right, brother, we didn't land on the moon. No. Of 1835, okay, wrong one. Let me take you back to 1835. 1835, you know, obviously we only had newspapers. Newspapers were printed. It was, you know, information traveled very slowly, but pretty much, you know, it was recognized that if it was in the newspaper, it was legit, right? Like that's kind of the way that things were done, right? And so the New York Sun was a big publication. And they weren't doing so well. They weren't selling a lot of copies. They just weren't, okay? And back then you had this thing called the penny press, okay? And what this was 1 cent newspapers that you could buy. They're like, you know, cheap newspapers. It wasn't the big thick one, but it'd be decent headlines, you know, whatever. The news was a little slow. It wasn't breaking news, but you got what you paid for. And so there was this idea that came from one of the publishers, right? And it was this newspaper that was easy to read, and it was information that affected everybody. It wasn't the big newspapers, but he's like, you know, we gotta sell something. We gotta sell these. Well, this was a time where astronomy was becoming really big, right? There was a lot of science that was happening. People, you know, telescopes had advanced, and everybody was like really, you know, excited about it and really interested in it. Okay, and so John Herschel, right, the guy who discovered Uranus, true story. Okay. His son was also a very prominent astronomer. Okay. He had some weight to his name. And he went to South Africa with this massive new telescope. Went all the way there. People knew who Herschel was, and this was a real thing that was happening. So people knew, based on his name, that this was a pedigree of astronomy, and it was actually going to South Africa with this massive new telescope. So they got an idea. The New York Sun had an idea. They knew he was all the way in South Africa and nobody was going to be able to confirm anything or deny anything with him. So they said, you know what? For the next 6 weeks, we are going to print front page what he discovered. We're going to do this. And so they were smart. They attribute it to the Edinburgh Journal. So they're using Herschel, who's in South Africa, and attributing it to Edinburgh, saying that Edinburgh wrote this about him, and they're just basically saying we're attributing it to him, and Edinburgh Journal had nothing to do with this. So they basically blame the Irish. Very easy to do in the early 1830s. I mean, what were the Irish going to do? I mean, like, you know what I mean? They weren't exactly in the best shape and, you know, kind of hungry, you know? So the thing is it's like, all right, we're going to say this. So this was the premise behind it. And now, here's what they printed, okay? Here's what they printed. Are you ready for it? They said, and the people believe this shit. They said that this new telescope was able to see the actual surface of the moon, like the ground and everything. And that there were oceans, vast oceans out there, okay? Huge colored valleys. Guys, 1835, not 1935. Chill, okay? All right? Sapphire colored cliffs. Just this beautiful utopia, okay? Just this beautiful utopia. Trees that were translucent, right? And they were saying that these forests, like, they just glowed and sparkled in the light. And so people were like, wait, what? That's what's on the moon? Because remember, back then, we didn't know what the surface of the moon looked like. We had telescopes, but we weren't able to, like, really see anything. And people just had to take it for word because they were like the astronomers, right? Like like we economists today, like they just kind of know what's going on. So we'll take their word for it. Then they started printing about what else was seen there. They started talking about that he was reporting that he could see animals. Giant bison-like animals, right? Now, you might be saying, why bison? Well, this is when we were literally wiping out the population of bison. Like have you ever seen the pictures where we went out west and, like, people were getting off trains and shooting them from trains and, like, just murdering entire herds to just skin them for their coats and then leave their bodies to rot? And one of the reasons that a lot of Native American tribes, before we started, like, forcibly relocating them, they followed the bison herds and they were losing their bison herds. They just rotted the meat out there. So it was wild. There's pictures of skulls lined up, mountains of them, right? So bison was very familiar. It was oftentimes in the headlines as well. And so there's these bison-like creatures, mini zebras. People had only seen zebras in the zoos because it was an exotic animal, right? They had to bring it over on a ship and stuff. So there was like little mini zebras that they had. One-horned goats, bipedal fucking beavers, okay? All right, like these, like fucking, and they built huts This sounds stupid, but this is the kind of shit people, they didn't know any better. This is like, holy shit, it's the moon. It's a whole other fucking, we've seen weird animals from other countries, right? I mean, I want you to think about a platypus. What the fuck is a platypus? If I described to somebody what a platypus was, they would think I was making that shit up. Okay, it's a fucking beaver with a goddamn duck beak and you know, otter fucking tail or feet. Like, what the fuck is that? What is that? And it lays eggs. Do platypuses lay eggs? I don't know. So you've got a mammal that lays eggs that's a beaver with a duck beak. What? Nobody would believe that shit. It's also poisonous. Actually, it's venomous. Poison is if you touch it and it gets you, whatever. Venomous is when they inject it into you. So actually, it's not poisonous. It's venomous. Please, get it correct. Okay. Okay. Plants, you know, touching that and getting that's poisonous. Venomous is when it's injected. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So if I explained a platypus to you right now and you had never heard of one, you would think I was full of shit. So when you hear me say mini zebras, bipedal beavers, and one-horned goats, that's like not even that far-fetched. Think about that. Is that true? I just learned something. What about the poisonous and venomous? Yeah, think about it. This is how I was taught. If you bite it, it's poisonous. If it bites you, it's venomous. Make sense? That's how we learned. All right. So fucking bipedal beavers and shit. Someone even slipped in unicorns at one point. Okay? Which, fun fact, people used to spend a shitload of money for unicorn horns. Okay, you hear people in China right now that are you hear about like how they want the ivory of the rhino horn because they grind it up and they think it's medicinal purposes. Let me tell you I'm gonna get back to this, but let me tell you about a little side quest here. Let me tell you about the unicorn scam. People believed that unicorns were real, and it only got worse because guess what? One day, a bunch of fucking whalers got off course and went too far south, and they saw the fucking narwhals, right? And they're these giant horns. And they said, holy shit, what if? So they fucking, like, speared the shit out of these guys, right? And then fucking took a goddamn sawed off the horn and brought it back and sold it as a faraway land mythical unicorn horns. Because no one had ever seen a narwhal before, but they'd seen pictures of unicorns. This was a real side hustle that happened. These guys were making fucking bank selling unicorn horns to people. Because every picture of a unicorn horn it was exactly what these people brought. And so people were paying ungodly amounts of money for fucking unicorn horns. And then people were grinding them up and eating them, trying to get the magic and shit. So why do I have all this fucking knowledge in my head? Why couldn't I have just remembered to respond to an email so I was in the GameStop documentary movie? Why? That I couldn't do. But I could remember about the fucking narwhals and unicorns shit. All right, so back to what I was saying. So they had to up the game, right? They're running front page for 6 weeks. They're running the front page for 6 weeks. And so then it was time for the finale. They then said that Herschel reported winged humanoids. Motherfucking people with fucking bat wings. Okay? And they had primate look-like faces. And they flew around with the like bat-like wings. They literally called them, what is it? I think Vespertio humanoids. Bat people. They called them bat people. They said they were about 4 feet tall. They flew in fucking like entire flocks of these people. However, they resembled angels almost. Copper-colored skin, and they lived in these giant temples, flying around in the light of the moon. They had lithographs back then that they printed out of pictures of all this. They got artists to do this shit, and it went nuts. It went nuts, and it worked. That's the craziest part about this. The fucking thing worked. They went from selling about 8,000, I think it was about 8,000 daily copies to over 20,000 copies a day. It became the world's most read newspaper. It actually became the world's most read newspaper. All because people thought it was credible. And they used a good name, they used another story, they used this, and they just ran with it. At one point, they had crowds outside their fucking printing factory demanding copies of the next paper. They just couldn't print enough. It wasn't until the 6 weeks, almost 8 weeks total, 2 weeks after the final print, did somebody actually go all the way to fucking Edinburgh, throw a few potatoes out there to get some information and find out that this was bullshit. Edgar Allan Poe got conned by this as well. The reason that Edgar Allan Poe ended up hating the media was because he got tricked by this. He got duped by this. Edinburgh, Scotland. Oh yeah, you're right. I always forget Scotland exists. Thank you. But for some reason I was thinking about yeah, I don't know why I kept thinking that. I don't know why. Thank you for correcting me. But yeah, they go all the way to Scotland and then find out that it's not real. Okay, so Edgar Allan Poe literally hates the fucking media, hates newspapers and stuff, all because he got scammed out of this. Like, he legitimately thought it was real. Okay, he was pissed. And the other reason that he was pissed, can I tell you the other reason why he was pissed? Funny fact. 2 months before this story hit the presses, Edgar Allan Poe actually wrote a fake moon story as well. He wrote it as fiction, okay? And it didn't take off because this newspaper screwed the guy out of it. Like, he literally had one, I don't know the name of it. I'd have to look it up. Let me see if I can find it here. Hold on. So it was called, it was called Hans Pitfall. What is it called? Like a Hans Pfafali or some shit like that. I don't know what to put. But he actually wrote his own moon hoax story, fake story, and it got overshadowed. So not only did he lose money because of this, he then believed that this was real and then found out later it was fake. And so the best part is remember in the beginning of the stream how I said if you ever get caught in a controversy, the best thing you can do is ignore it or meme it? Well, guess what? It's discovered that this was fake. Discovered that it was fake, and the New York Sun admitted, yes, it was fake. And nothing else. Didn't apologize, didn't do anything like that. They just said, yeah, we fucking made it up. And you know what happened? All the readers loved them for it. They were like, oh, they got us. If they would have said, oh, we're so sorry, it was one of our editors, it was one of the people that released it without our knowledge, and we're gonna shut down the newspaper, we're gonna fire them or some shit like that. No. Did they say like, yeah, well, oh, we thought it was real but it's their fault, or is it? No, they didn't do any of that shit. You know what they did? They're like, yeah, fuck it. It was fake. And instead of people being outraged, you know what they did? They thought it was hilarious. They're like, they fucking got us. God damn it. Well played. Well played. And sales didn't fall. People actually kept buying it just because they were so amused that this ran and they were so into it and that they got duped that they actually kept buying the newspaper. So before there was fact checking, before there was any like way of like, finding a secondary source or something like this, these guys were the original fake news, clickbait, fucking, parody bullshit. And they actually made it work because this was a lesson. I told you, if you fuck up, you either ignore it or you lean into it, meme it. They did that. It led to the rise of tabloids because guess what? Everyone realized, holy shit, people want to believe bullshit, or they want to believe a lie, or they will read shit. They will click on shit if it sounds crazy enough, real or not. And so this hoax led to tabloids, led to parody, led to fake news because they were actually rewarded for it. So it was good and bad. It also inspired Jules Verne's From the Earth to the Moon that he wrote in 1865, and it inspired H.G. Wells in a lot of ways. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's your history whiteboard of the day. Now you know about the great moon hoax of 1835, how we got tabloids, how we got clickbait, how we got all that shit, and how narwhals were used to sell fake unicorn horns in the 1800s in Europe.